The beam from my flash illuminated the long dark hallway before me. Specks of dust drifted in and out of the light as I slowly scanned the dark environment. After a few moments, the faint pitter-patter of footsteps echoed through the very same hall, until it was revealed to me that the footsteps were approaching from behind me. Turning around, I saw the jolly expression on my friend's face as he was still pulling the zipper up on his jeans. "I hope you went outside." I spoke, feeling like he had taken a suspiciously little amount of time to relieve himself. He smiled back at me and simply asked if I was ready to keep exploring. I nodded before turning away from him. Normally, I opt to go urban exploring alone. There can be safety in numbers, but more people are also things I have to keep an eye on. But this particular building, Vickersons Hospital, was halfway between me and Thomas, so I figured it wouldn't hurt to bring him along. He had always expressed a desire to come with me, and it seemed like an easy enough building. The place was run down. Parts of the ceiling had fallen in, and were laying in the middle of the hallway. Doors were torn off hinges, laying against the wall, or just missing entirely. Whatever traces of wallpaper or interior decoration there had been was gone. It was an old hospital building that had since been taken back by nature. I remember hearing rumors that the building was an institution that would experiment on different mental disabilities. As we walked through the halls, casting out lights into one room after another, we failed to find anything that was indicative of that. Nothing reminiscent of other equipment I had found in buildings that did relate to mental illness. It was just a run-of-the-mill hospital. Old and torn hospital beds sat in rooms, surrounded by brown, decaying privacy curtains. Seemed like we couldn't walk 5 feet without seeing a cluster of moss climbing to the ceiling. We must have been in there for a little over an hour, when I could tell the appeal was starting to wear off on Thomas. He asked me how long I normally stay, and I replied that it depended on the building, a few hours normally. He started walking slower and looking around less. I figured we could just head out and I would come back at a later date. As I was turning to face him, my flashlight shot down the hall, and for a moment, I thought I saw something retreating into one of the rooms. Keeping the light still, my friend started to turn where I was staring. With a whisper, he asked if I was okay, as I must have frozen up pretty quickly. "Thought I saw someone," I replied in a hushed tone. The building was quiet apart from the chirping of a few nocturnal insects. If someone was moving around, we would be able to hear it. There was so much rubble on the floors it would be hard to avoid scraping bits of concrete together. It wouldn't be alarmingly uncommon for us to have run into another person exploring the building. It was a nice cool night for it. Still, I didn't feel like I wanted to take any chances. There were a few ways to exit the hospital, so I nudged my friend and slowly we retreated. We tried moving cautiously to reduce the noise we made, but, like I said, it was hard to avoid shuffling the debris around. I kept bouncing the beam of light from in front of me to where I had seen the figure, until we were far enough away from the room that I could hardly make out the door. For a moment, I thought it possible that my eyes had just played a trick on me. That was until, right within the illumination of my flashlight, I saw a person walking into another room. Thomas must have seen it too, as both our feet scraped the floor under us. In tandem, we decided to turn around, and as we did, almost on cue, another shade quickly ducked into an open room. Thomas let out a gasp of air, and I could hear his breathing start to get heavy as he turned to me for guidance, though I wasn't sure of the best course of action. I did start carrying a hatchet with me for self-defense, just in case, so I quickly reached into the bag, but my fingers failed to land on the weapon. I cursed myself, thinking that I hadn't packed it, but that opinion quickly changed as I heard metal crashing to the floor. Spinning to where the noise came from, I could see the light reflection of the shiny metal surface of my hatchet. In disbelief and foolishly, I stepped over to it, telling Thomas to wait where he was. Kneeling down, I wrapped my fingers around the handle and could feel that even in the chilled air, the handle was cold. Lifting myself up, I started walking back to Thomas. But as I did, I could see a head poking out of one of the rooms between us. Thomas could see it too. The thing was looking in his direction. All I could see was dark and matted clumps of hair hanging down. Thomas's face, though, was twisted into something abstract. A fear I had never seen him wear before. An expression so telling that I could feel it in my chest. "Hey!" I screamed. Couldn't tell you why, but I thought it would be better if the thing was focusing on me. I should have taken the opportunity to strike it, but I thought if it was just some squatter, I could scare it or something. Show it I had a weapon. The thing twisted its head to face me within the fraction of time it took me to blink. I quickly understood the expression that Thomas had on his face. "We have to run!" Thomas cried, his voice cracking. I couldn't pull my eyes away from the thing in front of me. The watch-brown, leathery skin was hanging off its face like an old ripped-up sofa, some threads barely hanging on. Under the bits where skin was peeling off was another layer, dark like soot and cracking like burnt tree bark. That dark skin cracked more as the creature clicked its teeth together, almost like it was trying to communicate. I heard Thomas's voice again, the same words repeated, "We have to run!" But this time, it was that creature's lips that were moving with the words. Flakes of darkness falling off around its mouth and loose skin flapped around. Fingers completely free of the external layer of skin. Just burnt black fingers with bone-white nails that were so sharp my hatchet couldn't compete. "Hey!" The exclamation made my skin shiver and bones rattle. It came from behind me, trying to get my attention. My own voice was calling out to me. Except it was off. There was a whistle too, like the thing's throat couldn't completely replicate my voice. No matter what, another one of those things was behind me. "Run," I mouthed to Thomas, who didn't have anything behind him. Without so much as a word, he turned and started sprinting down the hall. The creature in front of me leapt out of the hospital room after him. That tan skin was all over, hanging off the thing's frame, held in place by the loose-fitting clothing over a nearly skeletal stature. The thing moved quickly, and I couldn't have caught up with it if I tried. Regardless, I started my run. Looking back just a moment, I could see the other creature exiting the room. This one had shorter blonde hair that really stuck out against the dark scalp. Its clothing was different, along with the color of the skin hanging off of it. It looked as if the creatures were using the skin as a cover, but it had decayed beyond its usefulness. I didn't have the time to sit and try to understand it though. The fear bubbling up like magma urged me to run, and run I did. Feet pounded against the ground. I could hear hard thuds cascading through walls as I pumped my arms and tried to regulate my breathing. If you're going to be urban exploring, it's best to try and stay in shape, and luckily I had been doing it for a while. Though I could hear the skittering behind me closing in quickly. There was no way I was going to be able to outrun the thing. As I descended the stairs, I got another look at the thing's whole body. Long, inky, dark limbs reached in and grabbed the surroundings like a spider clinging to the wall. "Hey!" It screeched again, attempting to perfect my voice. It was closer than last time. Getting to the bottom floor, I had something of a plan, though it wasn't a very good one. I bolted down the hallway as fast as I could, and when I heard the tapping of its fingernails closing in on me, I stopped altogether. Swinging my body around, I used my turning momentum and plunged the hatchet into the side of the creature's head. It didn't seem like it even hurt the thing, but it did stop. "Hey!" It repeated, extending the words until it sounded like the low groan of a motor. The exit was close though, and Lord knows I wasn't going to reach for the hatchet. So I took its halted advance and ran for the exit. A familiar tapping followed after me, but once I had passed the threshold and nearly fell to the grass surrounding the building, I looked back to see the thing had stopped just shy of the doorway. It looked out at me, tilting its head at me, observing me with bright amber eyes. It was then that I remembered Thomas. Shining my light, I scoured the entirety of the outside. Time went on, and I couldn't find anything. Every time I got to another exit to see if he was waiting there for me, I would see the creature sitting in the doorway, like it thought I was just going to walk up to it and let it take me. Pain lumped in my throat as the sky started to grow brighter, and I eventually had to give up. Screaming until my throat went hoarse, I had to admit defeat and started walking away from the building, hoping that Thomas had just run home, but knowing how unlikely that was. Before long, missing person posters started appearing stapled to poles and taped to windows. I tried my best to help, even telling them where we had gone, even if it did put me at suspicion for foul play. I told them all about the night, except the creatures that attacked me became regular people with ill intentions when I told the police. I figured telling them about the creatures would cast doubt on me. They continued questioning me. Didn't book me, but were certainly keeping an eye on me, which made processing everything all the more difficult. Then, one night I heard my name being called. It was late. The moon was hanging above, and I was just laying on my back in bed watching the time pass. "Adam!" I heard chime through the silence of my room. At first, I thought it was my imagination. "Adam!" I heard again. Springing up from the bed, I recognized Thomas's voice and ran over to the window to look out into the alley where he was calling me. My heart felt as though it had been ripped to shreds when I looked out the window. "Adam!" He was calling for me, but it wasn't the way you'd yell at someone just to get their attention. The more I heard it, the more clear it became. It was the way you'd yell for someone, desperate that they'd find you and help you. Tears plumed under my eyes, looking into Thomas's face. The skin was stretching and pinned by wire to keep it in place. "Please, Adam!" The thing chimed, unaware of what those words meant. Thomas's clothing hung loosely off its frame, though the skin was pulled taut to be able to fit the thin, elongated frame. It seemed undamaged, from what I could see through the window into the dark anyways. "We have to run!" It cried out. My fingernails were about ready to pry free of my hands as I dug them into the windowsill, clenching my teeth. I want to kill those things, bury much more than a small ace into their heads, over and over. As my rage was boiling, it kept calling out my name, and I could hear the sadness and fear in Thomas's voice. And then one of the neighbors turned their back porch light on. The thing quickly moved its head away from the light before fleeing on all fours, moving like a bug. At least I knew where it was going. Hey guys, I want to take a quick second to say thank you. Thanks for continuing to listen to the narrations and for all the kind words and continued support. Of course, I do this because, well, I love doing it. I love making these, and I plan to keep this channel going and hopefully growing for the long haul. Though I never expect it from anyone, if you wish to support the channel further, I want to mention my new Patreon page. The link is down in the description, and it means more than you know. In time, I plan to have some pretty awesome exclusive content there. But of course you don't have to. I'm completely satisfied knowing I'm somehow crafting content that you all enjoy. Okay, I don't know. I'm done rambling. See you next time.